Hello and welcome to another Teamo8 hand review. Anyway, we've got one of our players here who's just started playing flops, so let's get right into it. This is an 18-seat turbo sit and go, of course, Omaha Hi low. Let's see what happens here. Okay, we have a raise, and we call. Perfectly good hand to be calling with. Okay. Alright, we didn't really catch much on that flop. Oh, and he's called. That's a bit of a mistake here. We've got no low draw, and we're drawing to the smallest possible flush. No one could have a smaller flush draw than us with our four deuce. So, yeah, this is a case of where we're just bleeding off chips. Big mistake there. Really, you've got to be in these turbo sit and goes. You've really got to be playing for the nuts on at least one side of the hand, and this is certainly not the nuts on either side of the hand. So, yeah, bit of a mistake there. Let's move along. All right, it's just a couple of hands later. Let's see what happens here. Okay, get a flop. Okay, we flop a set, but as anyone who's been paying attention to the videos will know, a set, even top set, on a board with a low, when you don't have a low, is extremely problematic, and basically we should just get away from this hand. If anything happens, checked around, okay. Well, situation got worse. Obviously, there's a bunch of possible straights on the board now for the high, and we still don't have a low, and we can't make one. So, yeah, checking is good. Okay, there's a bet and a call. Oh, and our player called. Some reason the replayer taking his call away, but yeah, that's a big mistake. We've gone over the equities of this situation a million times. Here, it's really bad, in that the only chance we've likely got of winning half the pot. Remember, half the pot. We're drawing to a full house for half the pot. We're drawing to a full house now because of that four being there. So yeah, that's another post flop leak. This player will watch this, and I know he's asked me. He's waiting for this video, and yeah, he'll understand. You can't play high only hands on low boards in most circumstances, and particularly when there's a straight on the board like that. Well, several straights. Anyway, let's move right along. All right, here we are a few hands later. We've got pretty much a hand of nothing. Oh, and our player makes the call. That's a mistake. Really, there's our stack is far too with 10 blinds. We don't have any kind of implied odds. Yeah, that's just, what can I say? That's just a real mistake. I don't know if that was a misclick or something. Anyway, so we flop bottom two, which of course, as everyone will know, when there's a low draw and a flush draw out there, even two pair isn't worth much, and of course bottom two is never really worth much in a multi-way pot. Okay, we're just trying to check this hand down, see if we get, okay, it's been bet. It's a small bet. Oh, we've called, okay. Now it might seem like we're getting pretty good odds here. We're getting, what are we, we're roughly getting 12 to 1 to draw to a full house. But we're going to be drawing to a very, very small full house. We don't expect our low to be good on the low side of the pot. We're going to have the worst possible low if we do make a low. We're going to have an 8-7 low. And remember, you always count your low from the high cards downwards. So we're going to have the worst possible low if we make it. However, if we boat up, we're going to have the worst possible full house. So we're drawing to the worst possible made hand on both sides of the draw. So even though the 12 to 1 seems like it's reasonable for a 4-out draw, it's not in this situation. That's another leak. Anyway, let's move along. Okay, here we are a few hands later. Yeah, we're 8.5 blinds. We've got a jamming hand. Let's see what our player does. And he makes a small raise. I really don't understand what the point of that raise is, why he's doing that. He's got his hand range guides. He knows that's a jamming hand. Maybe it's because he just started playing flops that, you know, if the stacks were a lot deeper, he could come in for a raise, but not with that hand, actually. So, yeah, I'm really not sure what's going on there. I think he needs to pay a little bit more attention. Once the stacks get short, he needs to pay more attention, this player, to his jamming ranges. Anyway, let's move right along. Okay, it's a few hands later. Our player still managed to hang in there. Okay, so the small blind open limps. What does our player do? Any jams? Fantastic. That's a really good move. If given our stack size, if the small blind had any kind of hand, he would have jammed it on us. So jamming his limp is exactly the right thing to do. In fact, with this size stack, we'd call if he jammed anyway. But I just wanted to make the point that clearly the player up here doesn't have much of a hand. So jamming here is absolutely the correct thing to do. Anyway, let's move right along. Here we go. It's the last hand from this game. We'll have a few more hands from another game coming up soon. Let's see what happens. Okay. And our player calls. I have absolutely no idea what was going through his mind here. This is a terrible hand. You know, you actually got 4 of the worst hands in Omaha cards in Omaha High Low sitting in his hand, and he calls a raise. Now, that said, this hand is in the jamming range at this stack size, double suited with 2 low cards. Yeah, I would jam over the top of that and hope to isolate and have a chance, but risking playing a multi-way pot with a really terrible hand like this, it's just a recipe for going broke. So anyway, yep, that's all from this game. Well, let's just flick over to some hands from another game. Okay, here we are in the next game from the same player. Let's get right into it. And see, there's a limp, another limp, and our player limps in. Now, I can understand the temptation. You're getting odds of 7 to 1 to see a flop. But the problem is that we've got a really weak hand. All we've only got 2 low cards, an ace and a 5. So already we're starting with a pretty bad low. Secondly, we're holding the 9, and as I've said before, the 9 is the absolute worst card in this game. It's the card you least want to see when you look down at your hand. So choosing to play a hand out of position against multiple runners with a really weak low and essentially just a 3-card hand. That 9 almost never plays, by the way. When you've got an ace and a king in your hand, the 9 never plays. It doesn't play in any straight. If you've got a straight using the 9 and the king, well, then you've got a straight using the ace and the king instead, because the only board is going to be 10, jack, queen. So unless the 9, flops trips or quads or full house somehow, the 9 essentially doesn't play. So a 3-card hand. So just to summarize, it's a 3-card hand. It's got a weak low, and we're playing it out of position against multiple runners. That's a recipe for going broke. Anyway, let's move right along. Okay, here we are in the big blind. Let's see what happens here. A limp, a raise. Oh, and our player calls the raise. This is a huge mistake. This is not in his hand range for calling raises. It would, and really, out of position, this is a terrible hand to be playing in a raised pot against multiple opponents out of position. So it's like the hand before, only it's worse because it's a raised pot out of position. Again, we've got that useless 9 sitting. In this case, the 9 is completely useless, so we've definitely only got 3 cards working together in this hand. Remember with Omaha, except in rare occasions, you need all 4 cards working together. All this 9 does here in our hand, it's a blocker to our flush outs. So yeah, this is again, it's a big leak. So summarize for this player when he watches the video. Playing all these ridiculous weak hands, playing them in raised pots, playing them out of position. If you've got a weak hands, and like we saw before, someone raised, but it's in your jamming range, then jam it. Don't go calling and inviting multiple players in to play against you when you've got a weak hand. When you've got a weak hand, you basically want it all in pre-flop, and you want it heads up. Of course, you're only doing that when you're desperate, but sometimes you are and you have to. Anyway, if you'd like to know a bit more about what we do here with the training and staking that we do in Omaha High Low and all its variants, then check out the website at teamo8.com. Anyway, until next time, bye for now.